I never thought a paper cup of coffee would be the thing to shatter the last bit of denial I was clinging to. The air that morning had that cold dampness of a city not ready to wake up yet, but pretending. Fog hugged the pavement. Headlights glowed like weak lanterns in a world half asleep. I was tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes. The kind that grows in your bones when you've been carrying disappointment too long. I parked my car outside the cafe near our office, the same one I'd been walking into every morning for the last 5 years. Some of my coworkers were already gathered inside, laughing too loud for the hour, but it was familiar. Safe. I needed familiar. What I didn't expect to see was my wife. Not at a table with girlfriends, not reading a book like she used to. No. She was sitting in the far corner, hunched forward, laughing in that breathy, too sweet way that used to be reserved for me. And across from her sat a man I had never seen in my life. He looked like every warning sign I'd ever ignored. The way his hand rested behind her on the seat like he owned the space. The way her eyes sparkled when she looked at him. The worst part was she didn't see me. Not at first. I could have walked in and out like a ghost, and she wouldn't have noticed. But I didn't walk out. I walked to the counter, ordered the same drink I always did, and sat with Luke and Brian at the usual table. They were laughing about something the boss said in the morning meeting. I couldn't focus. My hands were flat on the table because if I curled them into fists, I wasn't sure what I'd do. I glanced back at her, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe it was her cousin. A coworker. But no cousin brushes your wrist like that. No coworker leans in so close their foreheads almost touch. She said something to him and laughed again, covering her mouth like she was embarrassed. She hadn't laughed like that with me in over a year. When I finally stood up, the chair scraped against the tile too loud. A few heads turned, including hers. And that's when she saw me. Her expression didn't just change, it collapsed. That fake light in her eyes died on impact. The guy beside her turned too, confused, eyes darting between us like trying to solve a puzzle with no pieces. I didn't make a scene. I just looked at her, let the silence say everything I couldn't. Then I walked out. The door slammed behind me, more final than it should have been. I didn't even realize it was raining until I felt it soak through my shirt. Cold. Steady. I got in the car and sat there staring through the fogged windshield. Inside, I could see her now standing, talking fast to the guy. Her hands moved like she was trying to undo something with invisible thread. He didn't look like he was buying it. Good. I started the engine and drove. Nowhere in particular. Just away. I ended up in a grocery store parking lot miles from anywhere that mattered. Rain pounded the roof like it had something to prove. I stared at the dashboard, breathing shallow and fast. My phone buzzed. A message from her. Just checking in. Hope your morning's going okay. No mention of what she knew I'd seen. No explanation. No guilt. My fingers hovered over the screen, tempted to respond. To ask. To yell. Instead, I closed the phone and let it fall onto the passenger seat. When I finally got home, I didn't go inside right away. I sat in the driveway, eyes on the house we'd picked out together, wondering how many memories inside were real and how many were just shadows wearing nice clothes. Eventually, I forced myself through the door. The house was quiet. Too quiet. She wasn't home yet. Maybe she'd decided to go straight to work. Or maybe she was with him. I walked upstairs and opened her drawer. I didn't know what I was looking for until I found it. A bracelet I hadn't seen in months. She said she lost it. But there it was, tucked into a small velvet pouch, along with a receipt. Dinner for two. Not from a local place either. A boutique hotel in a part of town we never went to. The date was from 2 weeks ago. The same weekend she said she was at a girls' retreat. My legs went weak. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the silence crash down around me. There's a line in every marriage. Some people cross it and lie. Some people dance near it forever. And then there are people like her, who don't even acknowledge the line exists. I heard her car pull into the driveway just as I dropped the receipt back into the drawer. I didn't hide it. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough now. She walked in calling my name like everything was normal. I didn't answer. Just waited. She appeared in the doorway, purse slung over her shoulder, hair damp from the rain. Her smile faltered when she saw me sitting there. She tried to play it cool. Said she didn't know I'd be home. Said she was just meeting an old friend. I didn't say a word. Just pointed to the drawer. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to me. There it was again. That moment when a lie collapses under its own weight. I didn't sleep that night. I laid on the motel bed with the curtains barely drawn and the flickering red glow of a nearby billboard leaking through like a silent siren. My phone buzzed every hour, sometimes more. Her name lit up over and over again, but I never answered. Her messages came in waves: apologies, guilt trips, anger, silence, and then back to apologies. I read some, deleted most. I was done being her safety net. Around 5 in the morning, I got up and drove without a destination, the sky still dark enough to hide in. I ended up at the old gym I used to go to before things got too messy at home. They had a 24-hour policy, and the same old guy at the front desk recognized me even though I hadn't walked in for over a year. "You look like hell," he said, not unkindly. I nodded and said, "I'm trying to change that." I ran on that treadmill until my legs gave out, until I was drenched in sweat and my thoughts had stopped clawing at the inside of my head. I wasn't running from her anymore. I was running for me. I went back to the motel, showered, and finally opened the email my lawyer had sent me the night before. The divorce papers were ready. All that was left was her signature. My hand hovered over the keyboard. I didn't want to see her again. Not in person. Not face to face. But some part of me needed to hand it to her. Not out of kindness. Out of finality. So I sent the message. "We need to talk." She replied in under a minute. "Name the place." I chose a neutral spot, a park bench across from the courthouse. No cafes, no diners, no cars. Just open air and nowhere to hide. She showed up wearing that same manipulative dress she always used when she wanted forgiveness. The one she wore on our anniversary 2 years ago, the one I once called my favorite. I hated that she still remembered that. She walked toward me like nothing had happened, like this was some silly argument we just needed to hash out. I stayed seated, hands folded over the envelope. She opened with a sigh, sitting beside me but not too close. "Jason, I was stupid. I know that. I messed up. But you and we've been through so much. Don't throw it all away over one mistake." One mistake. I let that phrase hang in the air until she squirmed. I turned to her, finally speaking. "It wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern. A decision you made over and over. You didn't trip and fall into someone else's bed. You planned it." She flinched. Her voice dropped, softer now. "I wasn't happy, Jason. You were distant. Always tired. I felt invisible. I closed my eyes. I worked myself to exhaustion trying to keep our life together while you were off chasing attention like it was air." I opened the envelope and handed it to her. "These are the papers. You signed them, and this all ends. No more messages. No more fake apologies." She stared down at the documents like they were written in a language she couldn't understand. "So that's it? You're just going to give up? After everything we've been through?" I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I didn't give up. You did. You just thought I'd be too broken to walk away." I stood up and left her sitting on that bench, the divorce papers still in her lap. By the time I got back to the motel, she had signed them and dropped them off with my lawyer. No handwritten note, no final word. Just her signature. And that told me everything I needed to know. The next few days passed in a blur of paperwork, boxes, and silence. I moved out of the motel and into a short-term apartment with peeling paint and a leaky faucet. But it was mine. No lies hiding in the walls. No perfume lingering on the pillows. I started walking more. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years. I even called my sister, who had always been suspicious of my wife but kept her opinions quiet out of respect. She cried when I told her the whole story. Not because she was sad, but because she was proud of me for finally leaving. That hit harder than I expected. I never realized how many people saw the cracks before I did. One evening, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. It was Evan. I could tell by the tone, smug but shaky, like a man who thought he had won something and was starting to doubt it. "Look, man," he said, "I didn't mean for things to go like this. She said you were over. Said you were done. Said a lot of things." I let him talk, listened to every lie, every weak excuse. And then I said the one thing that finally shut him up. "She used me for years. You think she won't do the same to you?" There was silence on the other end. Heavy, ugly silence. Then a quiet click. I never heard from him again. I wish I could say that was the end. That after that call, everything faded to peace. But healing isn't clean. Some nights I still woke up expecting her beside me. Some songs still punched me in the chest. And sometimes, when the loneliness crawled too deep, I almost missed her. Almost. But then I remembered the look on her face in that cafe. The way she laughed like I didn't exist. The way she lied without flinching. And the feeling passed. I wasn't just healing. I was transforming. Every morning I woke up without her was proof that I could survive. And every step I took away from who I used to be brought me closer to the man I should have been all along. The man who never begged. The man who knew when to walk away. I didn't expect her to show up at my job, but she did. It was a Thursday, and the sky was gray, just like the week had been. I was on my lunch break, leaning against the brick wall behind the office building, eating a sandwich that barely tasted like anything. Then I heard heels. Sharp, clicking, deliberate. I looked up, and there she was, Rachel. She hadn't texted in over a week, not since she signed the divorce papers and dropped them off. I thought maybe she'd finally gotten the message. But no. She stood there in some polished outfit like she had dressed for a courtroom drama. Mascara heavy, lips painted in that same shade I once thought made her look like the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Now, it looked like war paint. "Jason," she said, arms folded, chin high. "We need to talk." I didn't move. I didn't even blink. "No, we don't." Her nostrils flared. "I deserve a conversation. You can't just cut someone out of your life like that." "Rachel," I said, setting my lunch down, "I didn't cut you out. You ripped yourself out." "Don't do that," she snapped. "Don't make this black and white. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to lose everything?" "You didn't lose everything," I said. "You gave it away. You bet everything on Evan. And now that it's gone, now you're here." She looked away, then back, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I used to love, uncertain, real. But I didn't soften. Not anymore. "He left," she said quietly. "Good," I replied. She blinked. "You're seriously going to stand there and act like I meant nothing to you?" "Rachel," I said slowly, "you were everything to me. That was the problem. I gave you everything. And you threw it away for a man who couldn't even stick around when things got messy." Her voice cracked. "I was lonely, Jason." I shook my head. "You were selfish. There's a difference." She stepped closer. I didn't back away. "So, what now?" she asked. "You just move on like none of this happened?" "No," I said. "I move on because it happened." She stared at me for a few long seconds, waiting for me to fold, to say something that would give her hope. But I didn't. And eventually, she turned and walked away. I watched her go and felt nothing but relief. No anger. No sadness. Just the steady beat of a heart finally learning how to beat for itself again. That night, I sat on the porch of the apartment, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. I thought about everything I had lost. Then I thought about what I had gained. Clarity, peace, self-respect. I called my dad. We hadn't talked much during the fallout. He answered on the third ring. "Hey, son," he said. "You okay?" I nodded, then realized he couldn't see me. "I think so. Getting there." We didn't say much after that. Just sat on the line, breathing. Sometimes that's all it takes, just knowing someone is on the other end. Over the next few weeks, I started piecing life back together. I went back to the gym every morning. I volunteered on weekends at a local dog shelter. I spent time with people who actually cared about me, not out of convenience, but because they chose to. I went on a few dates. Nothing serious. Nothing that felt like home. But they reminded me that I was still capable of smiling. Still capable of interest. One of the women, Jenna, asked me during coffee what the worst and best parts of my last relationship were. I told her the truth. The worst part was realizing I was fighting alone. The best part was that I learned I never want to feel that way again. She nodded like she understood. And maybe she did. Maybe we all carry our own versions of betrayal in our back pockets. At some point, I started sleeping through the night again. The dream stopped. The ache in my chest faded. And one morning, I looked in the mirror and didn't see a man recovering from loss. I saw a man rebuilding. Reclaimed. And then, it happened. Rachel emailed me. Not a text, not a call, an email. 3 paragraphs long. Apologizing again. Saying she was getting help. Saying she missed our Sunday mornings and my stupid jokes and the way I used to always bring home her favorite pastries after work. It was a good letter. Honest. Vulnerable. But too late. I didn't respond. I archived it. Because closure isn't something they give you. It's something you give yourself. I took a deep breath and opened a blank document. Not for work. Not for anything important. Just for me. I started writing down what I'd learned. About loyalty. About pain. About healing. I wrote about how love doesn't mean losing yourself. How trust isn't something you repair with a hug and a pretty apology. And how sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is walk away, even when every memory begs them to stay. I wasn't writing for her. I was writing for the man I used to be. The one who stayed too long. The one who believed too hard. The one who needed to see, in black and white, that he survived. By the time I finished, the sun was rising. Pale orange streaks over the rooftops. I closed the laptop, stretched, and stepped outside into the light. Not because everything was okay, but because I was. A few months later, I found myself back in that same coffee shop. Not because I missed the memories or wanted to relive the pain, but because life has a funny way of bringing you full circle. I was meeting someone new. Her name was Natalie. We'd met through mutual friends at a weekend hike, and while there was no instant spark or whirlwind romance, there was peace, a steady calm. And after everything I'd been through, calm felt better than butterflies. I got there early, again, ordered black coffee and sat by the window, the same one I had once watched Rachel through. But this time, I didn't feel that old sting. No weight in my chest. No ghost at the table across from me. Just the low hum of people, the hiss of the espresso machine, and the quiet thrill of a new chapter. Natalie arrived 5 minutes late, laughing about traffic. She apologized, flustered, then sat down and launched into a story about her dog getting into the trash. I listened, not just out of politeness, but because I genuinely wanted to hear it. And that was the difference. It wasn't about filling silence. It was about sharing space. The conversation was easy. No eggshells. No coded language or quiet resentment. Just two people sitting across from each other, letting the present speak louder than the past. Afterward, she walked me to my car. She smiled, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and said, "You seem like someone who's been through some things but didn't let it make you bitter." I paused. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because she saw it. The truth of it. "I've been through fire," I said, "but I'm not carrying the ashes anymore." She nodded, and we left it at that. We didn't make any promises. No declarations of forever. Just a casual, "Let's do this again," and a wave goodbye. And that was enough. That night, I got home and found another email from Rachel. Shorter this time. 2 lines. "I saw you today. You looked happy. I hope it's real." I stared at the screen, half expecting the old anger to rise up again, to twist something inside me. But it didn't. I felt nothing. Just a quiet acknowledgement. Like reading the final page of a book you once couldn't put down but now realize was never really written for you. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Closure had already come and gone. A week later, I took a walk down by the lake. The one I used to drive past but never stopped at. I found a bench, sat down, and just listened. The wind through the trees. The lap of water against the shore. The world didn't owe me peace. It didn't owe me healing. But it gave me the tools, and I finally learned how to use them. I thought about how many people out there were still stuck in the middle of their own betrayal stories. Still bleeding quietly behind smiles. Still asking themselves if it was their fault. And if you're one of them, hear me. It's not your fault someone else made a selfish choice. It's not your failure that they failed to honor what you built. You can't carry both the hurt and the healing at the same time. So choose. Choose healing. Choose peace. Choose you. Walk away if you must. Crawl if you have to. But don't stay where you're not seen, where you're not valued, where your heart is only held when it's convenient. I learned that love without respect is just performance. That apologies without change are just manipulation. That loyalty to the wrong person is just self-betrayal in slow motion. And most importantly, I learned that sometimes the real strength isn't in fighting to hold on. It's in knowing when to let go. Now, every time I hear laughter from strangers at the next table or past couples walking hand in hand, I don't flinch anymore. I don't compare. I don't ache. I just keep walking. Because my journey is mine. My healing is mine. And so is my happiness. Rachel was a chapter. A loud, painful, stormy chapter. But not the whole book. And that's the beautiful thing about survival. It doesn't mean you're untouched. It means you're still here, still turning pages, still writing. I never got the grand apology. Never got the Hollywood ending. But what I got was real. I got growth. I got wisdom. I got myself back. And that's a happy ending in my book. So to anyone listening right now, sitting with that same hollow ache in your chest, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, yes, you will. Not all at once. Not without scars. But you will. And one day, you'll wake up, breathe deep, and realize the storm has passed. The sky is clear. And you're still standing. Stronger. Smarter. Wiser. Free. If you've ever been hurt and made to feel like it was your fault, know that you're not alone. And if this story spoke to you, helped you see your own pain in a new light, or just reminded you that healing is possible, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment below. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And you never know who needs to hear it next. Thanks for listening. You're stronger than you think.